George was 71 years old. His wife, Martha, was 68. Together, they had lived 45 years of quiet sacrifice. Their small house on Elm Street was never fancy, but it was always full of love, full of warmth, full of everything two devoted parents could give. George had worked as a postal worker for 30 years. He never asked for promotions. Martha sewed clothes at home, took in laundry, and cooked meals that stretched far beyond what their budget allowed. They skipped vacations. They wore old shoes. They ate last so their children could eat first. Their son, Daniel, was 42. Their daughter, Susan, was 38. Both had grown into successful adults. But something had quietly changed. Success had made Daniel impatient. Comfort had made Susan cold. One evening in November, Daniel called a family meeting. His voice was businesslike, almost rehearsed. He said the house was being sold. He said George and Martha were becoming too difficult to manage. Martha held George's hand under the table. Neither of them cried. Not in front of their children. 3 days later, with 2 small bags, George and Martha walked out of the house they had lived in for 40 years. No goodbye dinner. No imbras. Daniel handed George a small envelope of cash. Susan looked at her phone. The camp was a cold place. Rows of beds, thin blankets, fluorescent lights that buzzed all night. But George and Martha did not complain. Martha began knitting blankets for the other elderly residents. George read stories to those who had lost their vision. A young journalist named Claire walked into the camp. When she sat with George and Martha, something stopped her. George smiled gently. Our children needed the space, he said simply. Martha added, we don't blame them. We just pray they find peace. Claire's hands trembled as she took notes. Her article was published on a Thursday morning. By Friday, it had been shared 2 million times. Strangers left flowers at the camp entrance. The city was furious. Daniel could not eat. Susan could not sleep. Their colleagues looked at them differently. The shame was not just public, it was a deep, burning thing inside their chests that no amount of success could quiet. They drove to the camp together on a Sunday morning. Daniel had rehearsed what he would say. Susan had brought flowers. But when they arrived, the camp director met them at the door. They left yesterday evening, she said. They didn't say where they were going. They searched. They hired people to search. They posted appeals online. But George and Martha had disappeared completely. No phone, no forwarding address, no trace. It was as if they had dissolved into the world like smoke. Daniel drives past the old house on Elm Street sometimes. Susan keeps her parents' old photograph on her desk. Every morning she looks at it before starting work. Every morning she whispers sorry to 2 people who will never hear her. The people who love you the most will never beg to be valued. But the day they stop waiting, that silence will follow you forever. Never take for granted the ones who gave you everything. Because some goodbyes do not come with a second chance.